much sights to show you.
Hell yeah.
Welcome to the Horror Syndicate Discourse. It is Wednesday night, and your butt should be with us as usual. Tonight is also the Horror Syndicate's 7th birthday. Yes, that's right. 7 long years the Horror Syndicate has been around. I created the Horror Syndicate in 2016, and I still have a few people left that still like to talk horror with me. And one of them is Jared, and I'm going to bring him in right now. But for, first things first, you got to subscribe to the Horror Syndicate on YouTube and all that good stuff. Hit the like button. Like this video, please. It helps the algorithm a lot. Yes. But Jared, my man, we've been doing this for 7 years.
It doesn't feel a day after 6.
Well, it is a day after.
Happy
6.
anniversary, though. That's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't know that we'd make it this far, after all this time between the website and tons of articles, the horrorsyndicate.com, like 4 iterations of the YouTube or the podcast. I'm pretty happy with the Horror Syndicate. What about you?
Oh, I am incredibly happy. That's one thing that is can be said about the horror genre itself. Anyways, it always has staying power.
Yes. Why did we create the channel? Mostly because we were doing a podcast and we wanted to have a place to put it. And we wanted to do live shows so we could show our ugly faces. Yeah. So, yes. A lot of comments coming in already.
And if you want to dig deep and go deep diving into our old ones, I had long hair back in the day.
Oh, yeah. It was glorious. It was glorious. All right. Let's bring in the other 2 guys. And we've been doing this show, the Horror Syndicate Discourse, since 2020. So this is season 4. And, so I got to pick the movie. I've been picking all the movies, but I picked Wes Craven's New Nightmare because I am a Freddy fan, and every time we have an anniversary, I'm going to pick a Freddy movie. Last year it was Dream Master. I hit myself because we've never done A Nightmare on Elm Street. Soon. So I will bring in our panel of illustrious, beautiful people. The first is Nathan, who is on the phone.
Oh, hey guys.
Were you talking to your boyfriend now?
Yeah. He's dirty.
Yeah. I'll bet. How you doing, man?
I'm exhausted.
Yeah. It's been an exhausting week for me too. Now Nathan's been here since 2020, so big part of the Horror Syndicate, though. Congratulations! I don't know what to say. Thank you for being a part of this.
You're welcome.
Anyway, okay. That's as much as I can gush at the moment because we got to get Seth in here. Here's Seth somewhere. There he is. Seth, get in frame. There we go. Seth, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Yes. You know what? Pretty good. I wanted to try to be dramatic a little bit. So tonight, we're talking about New Nightmare. Who's excited about this topic? Jared is. Nate is. Nate, are you ever going to get the New Nightmare glove?
I need to. It's expensive. I do want to go grab something, though. I need it for protection.
Okay. You need something for protection. Do you guys ever see Naked Gun when they had, safe sex with full body condoms? Hey, Alex. Yeah. Hope you're wearing your Horror Syndicate shirt. Uh-oh. What's Nate got?
Rex.
Oh, he's got Rex. All right. So if you're new to the show, we basically dissect the movies. Nate does an autopsy of a scene where he breaks down shot by shot the scene, or a scene from the movie. And then Jared has tidbits and trivia every week. And then Seth is kind of lazy. So... No, Seth he's workshopping a couple of ideas, right, Seth?
Yeah.
All right. So the first thing I want to do, because it's an older movie, with the newer movies, I don't really do this very often, but I think I do every time. We kind of go over our first impressions of the movie the first time we saw it, which I saw it on video in '95, I think, and I hated it originally. I was expecting like a real Freddy movie, not what this was. And let's go around the table. Let's go start with Seth. What were your first initial reactions? Do you remember when you saw it?
Yeah, I was in high school and I borrowed the box set, the VHS box set from my friend. And actually, for a long time, this was my favorite sequel.
Really?
I was really whole meta thing. I like the fact that it's technically not, but they went after he was kind of joke a couple of movies, so that was nice and refreshing. And then over time, other sequels started overpowering it for me. It put down my list, but I still love it. I still it's not my favorite in the series anymore.
There are ups and downs for me with this one. I watched it before the show, but I do love it. It's a really, really great film overall. Jared, I want to hear from you next.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just went through a horrid coughing fit, so I had to mute myself.
Oh, thank you.
Like down the wrong pipe, like I was
choking.
choking.
One of those, yeah.
Yeah, I hate that. But kind of like Seth was saying, to piggyback on it, like it feels like one of the best sequels, but at the same time, I'm gonna like take a sidestep away from it because it feels like its own entity, which was what it was meant to be.
Yeah.
And like just off the bat, had Wes Craven probably not done this movie, I don't know that we would have Scream.
Interesting.
Because this was his like crawling into the meta universe, we're socially conscious of our movie as it is. Like, I mean, maybe he had it all and his writer with Scream maybe already had it down the line, but I have a feeling if they didn't do this movie, we may not have ever gotten Scream.
And Wes Craven's career up to this point was spotty, in my opinion.
Very.
Because, you got movies like Deadly Friend, which is terrible, in my opinion. It's hilarious. But, I mean, there are a lot of good ones in there, too, though. But Serpent and the Rainbow, I don't think did well. And then we did an episode on that, of course. And then
Shocker was amazing. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll let you have that. And then, well, I do love when it's one we have to talk about sometimes. People Under the Stairs. So that was, and then it's a good movie. What was anything in between there? Between this and People Under the Stairs?
I don't think so.
Okay. Speaking of drawing a blank, no, that was after. That was before Scream. 95. First time seeing it was this year, by the way. Not my favorite, but Nathan. Now I waited for you for the end because you are. I know Seth is big into Freddy. Jared is okay with Freddy, I guess, but Nate, you are like me and like in love with Freddy more than any other of the movie monsters, I think. So what by this time you were what? 18?
I was a freshman in college when this one came out.
So you were well versed in these films, and so what do you think? What did you think when you saw it? Did you see it in the theater? Because I feel like you'd be the only one.
I saw it in theater with 3 of my buddies, and I was the only one who liked it. I mean, I honestly I thought we were done with Freddy because of 1991's Freddy's Dead, and so I saw this as a treat. It's Wes Craven, it's Robert Englund, it's Heather Langenkamp, everyone's back. It's another Freddy movie, even though it wasn't really Freddy. It was just one of the smartest horror films I'd seen in a long time. It was different. There was nothing like it. You know, a lot of the movies. I mean, in Nightmare on Elm Street, we've talked about it. They were always the more creative of the slasher genre. But this was like even pushing it even further. And I thought it was a step up in the franchise. I also thought it was a step up in Wes Craven's directing and filmmaking. As Jared said, if we hadn't gotten this, we wouldn't have gotten Scream. Well, if you look at like People Under the Stairs is good.
Yeah,
It's good. But if you compare it to Scream, Scream is like light years better than as far as filmmaking wise than People Under the Stairs. This is that middle ground. New Nightmare feels like a huge film compared to a lot of other Wes Craven movies. It just feels grand. It just feels big, and it's a shame that a lot of fans didn't like it. I'm sure they've got their reasons, probably because it was so different. I also think it because it's such an adult film. It's not a teenager movie like all the other Nightmare movies. Although it has a little boy in it, but really the main character is a Heather.
Oops. It was a badge.
John Saxon Crotch.
Yeah.
You
put that in there.
I think this one's well because I think this is arguably the best sequel on a filmmaking level. But I don't have the nostalgia because I was 18 by this time. So I have a nostalgic draw towards the first four films that New Nightmare doesn't draw for me because I was already an adult, really. I was just newly an adult. But like the movies we see in our younger, days often have a bigger impression on us than what we, even though this is 1994, the movies that had the biggest impression on me in 1994 were The Crow and Pulp Fiction, probably, that came out, or Clerks. I also saw Reservoir Dogs and Days Confused that year for the first time. So, and Speed's not on there.
I think it was 93 anyway, but just want to throw it out there.
But like 94, this actually came out, I think, the same time that Pulp Fiction came out. So it got a little overshadowed by that. But I liked it a lot, and I do think I think the best Nightmare movies really are the ones that Wes was attached to in some way. He wrote Part 3, even though they didn't use a script, they used a lot of what he brought in that script. So without Wes Craven's input into Dream Warriors may be something completely different because Frank and Chuck were basing it off of what Wes invented in his script. So,
well, we've learned that, especially in. I'm trying to do something and I keep fucking it up. Anyway, trying to add one of your pictures is what I'm trying to do. It's on my phone. But does anybody want to add anything to that before we move on? No?
I mean, I'm good.
Are you good?
I've just stopped coughing, so I'm okay.
Okay, good. Oh, there we go again. All right, so yeah, it took me a while to get into this movie. I actually bought it sight unseen or whatever, and I was like, man, I wasted my money on this. I didn't understand it. I think I was 14 when it came out, and it just didn't hit for me because Freddy's Dead was a cough. I read coffin on here. Freddy's Dead was a kind of a like cartoon movie, and it was disappointing. Even though I did like it back then, I still like it. But this was like it's funny because you get first 5 movies, or there's a definite timeline. And then Friday the 13th, there's a definite 1 through 8 timeline, and then there are single serving movies. Freddy's Dead is single serving, and this is, and then the remake. So it's very, very cool that it's like that. And they both have the Versus movie, but over the years, the more I watch this, because I watch it at least once a year, I like it better and better almost every time I watch it. There's things that I pick up on. Like Seth and I were talking about it the other day. The scene that you're going to break down, the score change at towards the end of the scene when it pans over to the house and you hear the Elm Street theme is just so great. And I know Seth talked about not being a big fan of the score, which we're going to get into. But let's start breaking this bad boy down. And Seth's going to tell us what this movie is about. So, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically there's a demon that's a pissed off Freddy fanboy who's mad that they stopped making Freddy films. And he said, no, what? I'm going to make one myself. And so he decides to go after the people involved with the making of the early films. It almost kind of seems like he's like kind of manipulating Wes to write the story a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so naturally Heather Langenkamp gets dragged into it because Wes decides to write her into the script without asking her, and her husband dies, and she's getting obscene phone calls during this whole time that he's been writing the script, and her son Dylan is having nightmares, and yeah, that's about it. Pissed off fanboy demon decides to do his own nightmare in real life.
So one of the things that Seth is going to is workshopping is telling us the synopsis of a film in a total smartassy way, and that was kind of a taste of it. I love it. Yeah, I actually really like Freddy's Blood. Okay, well, we're going to talk about that.
This demon is a fan filmmaker.
He is. He's a fanboy fan filmmaker.
It's kind of like Richie in Scream 5, you know? He was mad about the last Stab movie, and then he decided to do his own. There you go, New Nightmare.
There you go, New Nightmare. So what you're saying is, even though Wes Craven didn't direct or have a part of Scream 5, his presence was still felt through, this movie.
Right.
Yeah. I'm tired of this shit. Anyway, so yeah, let's talk about the story a little bit, things we like and don't like about it. Because I think that was the biggest problem for me was, why is this set in the real world? Like, why should we care about Heather Langenkamp? And whose cat is that?
That's my cat.
Okay. So let's talk about the story. What worked for you, Jared, in this story versus the other nightmares? Because I'd say this is probably the third best nightmare overall, after Dream Warriors and not my favorite. My favorite's Dream Master, of course, but after the original and Dream Warriors.
I guess what worked best for me was Heather Langenkamp's performance. I mean,
yeah.
She was phenomenal in 1. She was really good in 3, albeit kind of briefly. Without like spewing all over it, like what worked best for me was the actual family ties in this movie. I guess one of the actual real things that I was going to use for my trivia was that Heather Langenkamp's husband in real life is a special effects artist.
We're still going to do your trivia.
Yeah, so we can just throw that in there now. But I guess he did not want to act as himself in the movie, so they hired an actor to play her husband, basically for the same role, which is kind of cool. But I just enjoyed how really closely tied it is to reality. Like, yeah, we're in the real world, but it's Heather Langenkamp had a real stalker in real life. Like there was some stuff that was tied to real life in this movie.
So did Adrian King.
That part I enjoyed.
Sorry, I said so did Adrian King. That's her favorite thing to talk about.
Right.
Like any interview I've seen with her, she's like, "I had a stalker." Blah blah blah. So yes, we know. Okay, I got everything.
He's the little boy from the lake, right?
Right, yeah. The little boy. Nate, what about you? What like you said, you like this right off the bat. So like, and I know you've got a lot to say about how you feel about this one, especially as Wes is your mom, right? Or is he your dad? I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Well, Wes didn't care for a lot of the sequels, and he watched them all before tackling this because it was just supposed to be
Mhm.
a seventh film. But he realized that they had kind of written it into the fucking ground, which they had. Like there was nowhere to follow. Freddy's dead. The piece of shit that it is.
Hey!
Just joking. It's
I will
fun.
make you
It's
talk
fun.
about that on another episode.
It's fun, but where the fuck do you go once you've made him a cartoon character? Because what this movie is saying that was never Wes Craven's Freddy Krueger.
Yeah,
He took Freddy Krueger back to what he was supposed to be, which was a fucking
Scary.
terrifying
yeah,
monster. And this Freddy is a terrifying monster. So that's part of what works for me is that this is a Freddy Krueger who is that just evil incarnate. I mean, when he's chasing Dylan around, like he's joyful of it. You know,
Yeah.
there's some really sick moments. Like one of my very favorite moments in the movie is when Heather answers the phone and it turns into the tongue, and Freddy says, I touched him." Is that what he says?
I think that's what he says. Yeah,
Yeah, like I touched Dylan, like I touched him, and he starts spitting up, and the tongue comes out, and all that. It was like that's a that's the that's the sickness that Wes Craven brought into his version of Freddy Krueger in the first one, and especially in his Dream Warrior script.
mm-hmm.
That is a very perverted, sick, minded, twisted, wicked person that disappeared after Dream Warriors, and so I think that's what I liked about this. Is even though he looks different, although he's based more on what Wes originally imagined, bigger, bulkier, leather pants. The glove is based on the Matthew Peak poster, the original poster.
Yeah. The green hat.
What I dig about that is,
No.
what I dig about it
No.
is like this is just this demon's version of this character, so
Yeah.
it can be open to anything. But although Wes Craven said he regretted the change, and in hindsight, he would have probably just made Freddy look like he did in the other films, because if it ain't broke,
It's
don't
not.
fix it.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. So,
Seriously though, skin tight leather pants. Oh my god.
yeah, there's things about it that I don't like about that design. I don't like how bulky it is. I don't. The mask does look. The makeup does look sort of like a mask. Yeah, the skin tight leather pants.
That's one of my questions. Just so you guys
Combat
know,
boots
his
is odd.
appearance.
But I won't get too much into it if you got questions. But that's what I think I liked most, was that this was the Freddy that I missed, because I really felt that the character had gotten away from this incarnation, and Wes was getting to bring his character back to how he saw him, and New Line thankfully let him do it.
Yeah. I mean, this movie was probably the scariest since the first one. I never really had any fear of the other movie. Well, the second one maybe. The second one was kind of scary. I mean, he was trying to take over Jesse's body, and who wouldn't? But
He was a scary figure in the first two films, without doubt.
And I mean, the more you see his face, and the more he talks, the less he, it's like Jason. They start rooting for Jason. You start rooting for Freddy a little bit by the third movie. In this one, it's I like there's a point where Robert Englund and Heather are talking on the phone, and she's talking about the nightmare she had, and she said, "Was it you?" Or he goes, "Was it me?" She's like, "No, it was." That right there speaks a lot about this Freddy. That and then Robert's of course painting him, not really knowing what he's doing.
Yeah, because this one's a literal demonic spirit. It's not human. It's I mean, there's a bit of genie, a djinn kind of mixed into this thing, which I even thought part two had a little bit. I always say that part two felt like at the end of part 1, Nancy caught Freddy in that house like a genie in a bottle, and that's why he
Trying to
used
use-
Jesse to
use
get out of
Jesse to
that
get out.
fucking bottle. That house
Yeah.
is his bottle.
That's
that
cool. I
he's
didn't know
stuck
about
in.
that. Huh. Seth, what about you and the story and everything? What are some of your thoughts? Because we're gonna do Jared's thing next.
Yeah, I like this story quite a bit. It was definitely focused. It was focused a lot on Heather. I felt like I do kind of wish it was a little bit more of Robert Englund as himself. I think that would have. I think, especially when it comes to like that phone conversation you just mentioned, where he asks her, as in me, like
Mhm.
that just been a kind of a cool thing to play off is how would Robert being around, like how would she react, especially with everything happening. So I thought that would have been cool, but I mean it's fine as is. Again, I liked the meta story, especially when I first saw it, and like Nate mentioned too, and I think I also mentioned earlier too, is like it just going back to the dark side of Freddy, where he's not cracking jokes every 5 minutes, where he's a little bit more serious and he's more of an actual threat. So it brings the horror back instead of just being a popcorn flick. And I
Mhm.
think that's probably where this movie lost a lot of the fans too, because the fan base probably got so conditioned to the way that he became, the way that character evolved into being such a popcorn
Goofball.
character.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so really going back to its roots and then doing something a little different with it, it's probably a little bit jarring for some people, but I liked it for what it is.
Yeah. Seth, I want you to answer this question.
I may have seen that once or twice. That's my favorite John Carpenter movie.
We did an
Couple
episode on
times.
that, right?
Yeah, we did a whole episode on this last year. Yeah, In the Mouth of Madness. I think it's across the board. We love that movie. So
Yeah.
I know I do, and I know Seth does. Seth, he jizzes in his pants when he sees that one.
Yeah, I do. I think there was supposed to be more Robert Englund. I think they cut. Like, I think he was supposed to get killed, wasn't he? In these scripts.
I heard there was a deleted scene that has not seen the light of day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like I really think that would have been cool to see Freddy, Freddy and Robert in a nightmare sequence, and Fred and Robert dying at the hands of Freddy. I think that would be pretty rad. That's a missed opportunity for sure. That would have been a geek out moment.
Yeah.
Really.
I think
Or it involved a spider and a web.
we're going to do your thing in a minute. I know that's probably part of it.
Not really, no, because nobody will ever see that.
I know it's a shame. But one of the things that I remember getting a feeling of was Robert. It almost feels like in his 3 appearances in the movie that it almost felt like a whodunit in a way. Like, who's the one calling her? Is it her? Is it Julie the babysitter? It's like that's one of the things I liked about seeing Robert, because you kind of like, is it him? So I don't know. I thought
The good part of it is Wes kept it Heather's movie.
Mhm.
And because, as we see in the scene, Heather's life revolves around everyone being obsessed with Robert Englund. And when we had Lisa Wilcox on the show, I told her when I do moderations for Nightmare, I don't bring up Robert or Freddy. And she thanked me. She says, when we do panels with Robert, that's all anybody wants to fucking talk about is Robert Englund and Freddy. And no, they don't get asked questions because the fans are all about Robert.
If I had moderated one, I'd ask for her hand in marriage, but whatever. Jared, where'd he go? He's going to do his segment.
Maybe he's coughing again.
Jared,
all right.
I hope you're okay, buddy. All right, so until when Jared comes back, we'll do that. Let's now. This is something we can probably go through pretty fast. Is the score? I know, Seth, you've talked about it a few times. Excuse me. That you're not a big fan of the score, and there's parts of it for me because it does, like Nate was talking about, this movie's big and it feels grandiose at times. That the score comes off that way, especially towards the end. But the score is just okay for me overall. I want to get your thoughts, Seth, and then Nate after Seth.
Well, the thing that I mentioned was that I have a lot of hate relationship with the score for the movie.
Mhm.
I did have it downloaded and on my old iPod, and I would listen to it. And there's some like really good moments in it, and especially like the one thing that Nate's going to be talking about. Like the score is fantastic in that scene. Then there's just other times where it sounds a little odd with the movie. I don't know, the score is sort of like it feels a little uneven. There's times where it really fits with what's going on in the movie, and there's times where it's really great. And there's other times where it's kind of a little awkward. And I know because I would usually when I'm like in the mood for Elm Street and stuff like that, or at least back when I had my iPod, I would listen to the scores like when I was at work, and I would listen to that one. But there was a few tracks where I just had to skip it.
The score towards the end when they're in the dream world, I guess, or whatever. I think that fit well in there. It was like a fantasy type score in a fantasy type world, and the whole Hansel and Gretel theme to that. I thought it was kind of good, but some of it I just don't even notice. And it's like Freddy's Dead. They only played the Elm Street theme once in that entire movie, and it's zooming in on a newspaper. What about you, Nate? What are your thoughts on the score?
I'm with Seth. It's a hit or miss thing. There's parts of it. I think it's really about the era. Again, the 90s were kind of there's a lot of shitty trends in the 90s in all films. Even like at the end where she's reading the book or the script to him, and it has this beautiful, and it has this orchestra, and it kicks in with this like kind of guitar or computer guitar thing that sounds like the fucking theme from Seinfeld or something. Ding 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 ding. And it's like, what the fuck? Like that kind of stuff just screams 90s crap to me. Because I love the 90s, but there was a lot of poor choices and a lot of questionable filmmaking choices. And a lot of 90s films suffer from that.
Thanks for that, by the way.
Yeah, now you're always going to think of Seinfeld. You're like,
think about it, yeah.
Kramer's going to break in the door at the end. Oh, Jerry. And,
hey, buddy.
Yeah. Hey, buddy.
Yeah. Anything on the score that you noticed, Jared, before we were going to do your segment now, after this?
I mean, kind of like they were saying, it was kind of hit or miss. There was one point, I don't remember exactly which scene it was, but there was definitely like part of a slasher, not slashers, Psycho, where it was like a ring moment.
I noticed that too. Yeah,
I don't remember exactly which scene it was, but
was that on the highway? The highway scene?
It might have been
somewhere in that area in the movie, I believe. Because I remember hearing, I was like, "Damn, that sounds very Psycho-ish."
And it was just like literally like 2 or 3 seconds. Like it wasn't very long at all, but I thought it fit the scene very well. I don't remember who it was when she was getting slashed in the dream when Miko was in the hospital. I can't remember exactly what part it was.
Remember. I know what you're talking about though, but here.
I need to buy a sweater like that. Okay, so funny thing is a lot of these tidbits actually surround Miko. I don't know why. I just thought they were the funnier tidbits.
Because girls have vaginas and men have penises,
right? Girls have penis, boys have a vagina. Strike that. Reverse it.
Strike that. Reverse it.
So actually, in this one, this is the first time that there was no opening credits to a Nightmare on Elm Street film, and the way IMDb worded it is kind of blurs the illusion of whether it's a film, documentary, or something else altogether, which I thought was kind of interesting because they are playing it kind of like a documentary at first, but then we obviously know it's not. Like you're all living in this world. Another one, the rocket ship that Miko jumps on to try to see if God will take him. Apparently his dad bought that thing in real life, and it is in his backyard.
That's awesome.
Another one about Miko that actually kind of fucked me up a little bit. It's like, how can you do this to a 6-year-old? Apparently, Wes Craven was trying to get like actual reactions out of him, trying to get emotion, get him to cry. Apparently, to do this, his mom would leave set, and his dad would go up to him and whisper him before the take, said, "Your mom is dead." Who does that to a 6-year-old?
I think Wes Craven mentioned that on Never Sleep Again, and then they give him a Happy Meal.
Well, I like the
they give him a Happy Meal.
I like the story that Robert tells on Never Sleep Again about how Wes wanted to see if he could scare him or whatever, and he goes, "Look, I could scare the biggest grip on this set, so let me have it." Like I like that confidence in Robert that he thinks that he can. You let me be Freddy, I can scare anybody.
Yeah. I bet he could.
There was another one that I thought was interesting. I don't know if it would change the movie any, but Wes Craven was really wanting to get Johnny Depp to come back just for the funeral scene because they would have been friends in real life and stuff, but he was really apprehensive to reach out to Johnny Depp. But apparently they met each other in passing after the movie was over, and Johnny Depp was like, "Dude, I totally would have did that." So Johnny Depp could have been in the movie, but he wasn't.
That's something I want to get into in a minute. Is like who was there, who I felt should have been there. But anyway, you have more.
He's in Freddy's Dead.
Yeah, right. I mean, he definitely would have done it because Freddy's dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Facing some frying pan.
Well, he had just worked with Rachel, right, on Crybaby, so I think that's how she got him in
Oh,
Freddy's
yeah.
Dead.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
I like that movie.
The other one that I had, they were just fun facts for this week, but Miko Hughes actually still has the sewn up T-Rex in his collection today.
Yeah. And Wes Craven had the other one.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
I'm sure some of these were probably on Never Sleep Again because I don't think I've ever seen that.
Never Sleep Again is a wealth of information for the Elm Street series. If you've never seen it, anyone out there, it's an absolute must own.
It's on Tubi. It's on Tubi for free right now.
Is it on Tubi?
Anyone hasn't seen it. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. Or you can, do what I did and buy 2 copies of it.
Because I've seen Crystal Lake Memories. I just never seen that one.
You've never seen that?
I haven't seen it.
I'll send you a copy. Fan. Sid,
Bitch went down.
All right. Anyway, there's a lot of interesting stuff on the set of.
Speaking of Scream, I didn't realize until this week that W. Earl Brown is in this movie.
Yeah, he's the coroner.
Is the coroner? Yeah, I was like, where's the mustache?
Mary.
I
I didn't realize he was in that either. I'm like, holy shit.
We were watching. I was like, Lily, we just met you.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, the Comic-Con we just did.
No
He was there for Last of Us and.
That show.
Yeah,
I missed one.
Go ahead, Jared's got another.
Let's do it.
Bob Shea's sister,
Lynn Shay.
Lynn Shay.
Only one that doesn't play herself because she was in the original movie.
Right.
Yep.
That was the one I was forgetting. I totally brain farted on that one.
She got to play another nameless public worker or something like that. That's what she said. I love Lynn Shay. And she was in there something about Mary too.
And Craven was his daughter was in it. Was one of the nurses. Yeah.
I think she was the one that poked Miko from the back.
Oh.
She's the one that gets elbowed in the gut by Heather.
Yeah, she gets abused by Heather, yeah. Yep, they're throwing bows and shit. Yeah, there's a.
She looks like Wes.
There's one other thing. There's one thing I wanted to ask you. Never mind. It's a question. Jared, anything else for our followers?
No, I think that was the last one. Like once he did like a name reference, it's like, oh crap, I knew I forgot one. No, I'm good though.
All right, let's talk about the cast because that's very strong in this movie, and I really want to highlight how fucking amazing Heather Langenkamp was in this movie. I mean, I know she is playing herself or whatever, but like this was she. First of all, she looks amazing. I think it's the best she's ever looked was in this movie.
It's gorgeous.
And yeah, she was gorgeous. And she gets the shit kicked out of her in this one more than the original movie too, if you think about it. You know, between the earthquakes, the meetings with Freddy, the dream world or whatever that is called, you know, like even the throwback scene to the first movie where she's going up the steps, man, that shit's nasty. Like she gets it all over her hands and stuff. But yeah, she goes through the ringer in this, and I guess this is probably the best performance.
I wonder if Pulp Fiction hadn't come out the same time, if she would have got more recognition and maybe more parts after this performance. Because she really, like, she didn't really do anything after her career. Never really blew up.
She did play Nancy Kerrigan.
Well, yeah,
at some point. So, yeah, I know.
I can't remember when that happened. What was it?
I think it was before. I think it was '93. Because the thing
that would have been the '94 Olympics or '92 Olympics when that happened.
I'm gonna look it up. Next time I meet her, I'm gonna take a picture of her as
she does look like Nancy Kerrigan.
She does. Yeah, she does. That was good casting. Yeah, that was the only reason I watched it because she was in it. But anyway, yeah, like the funeral scene, like that. I love that you got to see Nicky Corey, or whatever his actual name is, Shu Garcia. How do you say his name?
Jisoo.
Is it Jisoo?
Yeah.
And then Tuesday night, or as Kincaid says, Tuesday night.
I remember Mick Strawn talking about, you don't know what a pain in the ass making that movie was when you're trying to get a call sheet and an actress is named Tuesday night. Like, when are we shooting? Tuesday night. Or Tuesday. When is she going to be on set? Tuesday night. When's Tuesday night going to be? I did read that Amanda Wyss was wanted for the film, which, you know, she does feel like there's a big absence because she was a big part of that first movie. They didn't want to pay her enough to do it.
Oh, that's dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because there's so many people missing. Like I remember pausing it when I saw it because I saw Rod Lane right away. I'm like, oh shit! And I paused it and I was trying to see if there was anybody else.
See, now I need to go through that funeral scene again.
There's not many people in there, but Tuesday night's in there.
Tuesday and Jisoo and Robert Shea and Sarah Risher and
Wes, obviously.
Wes.
John Saxon.
Yeah.
Oh, 1994. Tanya and Nancy, The Inside Story.
It sounded like Amanda would have maybe had a bigger role than just being at the funeral, though.
That would have been great. I love her.
I kind of wish that, because she's, you know, Heather came back in Dream Warriors, but Amanda was done, and she kind of was that misleading Janet Leigh main character for the first part of Nightmare on Elm Street. So it would have been cool to at least see her represented in a band, get the band back together movie that New Nightmare was. Right. I wish they'd got Charles Bernstein to do the score. I think they were saving money again.
That would have been great to see more of the cast come back. But there's parts that, like, one of my favorite scenes probably my favorite scene in the whole movie is that scene with Wes Craven. Watching him get to play him and Bob Shea doing their little acting bits. But Wes
was just rough, though.
Yeah, I know.
Bob was rough.
He even admits that in Never Sleep Again. He goes, I wasn't very good in it. But he was
better
like,
in Dream Master. I'm just saying.
He was. Wes always said Bob wanted to be an actor, or wanted to be the director. So he knew I better get Bob a scene in this movie, because he'll do whatever I want once I give Bob a scene.
Okay, so is there any other standouts in this one? Tracy Biddendorf was good as Julie. Miko Hughes, of course, was really good. I'm glad he's got such a horror pedigree behind him already after Pet Sematary. So he was fun to see him. And boy, he didn't grow much from Pet Sematary, did he?
No. Oh, the nurse. who it looks like the female tall man. She reminds me of Angus Scrim for some reason. I don't know, her hairdo or
Are you the nurse or the doctor?
well, I guess the doctor, not the nurse.
Dr.
The
Hefner?
doctor, yeah, who's named after one of the members of the MPAA that drove Wes crazy about cutting his films.
Yeah, I like the scene with her and the makeshift glove, and apparently she got a kick out of that too. She got to kind of play Freddy. Yeah, there's some good ones in this.
And John
What?
Saxon. Didn't
Yeah,
see him.
John Saxon had a big role in this.
Glad
one.
they
And
gave
John
us
Saxon.
Yeah.
And I like John Saxon again. One of my favorite parts of the movie, John Saxon is a part of, and we're going to talk about that. I think we're going to do that right now. What do you think, Nate? All right.
All right. So we're going to talk about, I think this is like a lot of people's favorite scene, right? Or
There's a lot to this. So when you sent the scene over where she's laying in bed and the claw comes out, which is a good scene.
yeah.
This was the one I thought you were going to do. Actually, Seth and I both talked about this on our Friday show that we thought that we're like, this has got to be the scene Nate's going to choose.
What's my favorite scene in the movie? It is.
Yeah, right. And there's so much to it though between Nancy and John, or God damn it, Heather and John, and then what's
Nancy.
going on in the bedroom. There's so much to this that the score transition.
Yeah.
It's so great in this part of the movie. So let's get into
It's
it.
the nostalgia scene, but it's also
Yeah. Well, it's also a
composed
really good
very
scene.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump into it. All right, so John Saxon has come over to because Heather is kind of losing it. Is it right? It's not after the funeral, right? It's a little
No,
further.
this is after the hospital.
The hospital. Okay, so John is kind of acting like a surrogate father in this movie. And
Which
he's
I
o-
like.
He's over at the house and he's helping Heather, and they're stepping out, and it cuts to Dylan's bedroom here, and he's got all these great lights with the dinosaur thing and the little Humpty Dumpty fairy tale. A lot of fairy tale stuff in this film. It comes with this shot, and all of a sudden things start to shake and rattle like they're possessed. There's inserts of the lights exploding, and there's a model plane hanging from the ceiling that falls, and the trees start to. You see the shadows of the trees on the blinds that allow they're blowing outside to give more movement, and then Freddy, in an homage to the ending of Nightmare on Elm Street 1, starts rising out of the sheets of the bed. And then it cuts to John and Heather leaving the house, with Heather following them behind, and he calls her Nancy in this shot, and she stops and says, "Why are you calling me Nancy?" And he says, "What are you calling me Nancy, John?" And she says, "What? Why are you calling me John?" And he walks to his car off screen, and then we hear the dispatcher on his police squad car. And then he turns around, and he's dressed like Donald Thompson in the original film. She's like, "What the fuck?" And then she looks, and there's like an insert of the badge, which is a Los Angeles badge. So not a Springwood badge, but
Right.
we all know Lethal Weapon and Die Hard well enough to know that's not a Los Angeles badge. I'm a real cop. That's a real badge, and this is a real fucking gun. So yeah, there's an insert of the badge, and then where am I at? Cut to Freddy in this beautiful shot here, wonderfully lit of him rising up, and the camera is moving in on him to make him even like he's growing even further, like going low to get a glow angle. And then I believe we go back to Heather and Nancy. So in this, this creates momentum. The music's building. It's creating momentum because you're cutting back and forth while all of this really cool stuff is going on between Heather and John, where reality is breaking and cracking, where all of a sudden, I mean, she's not sleeping.
Right.
But somehow this is all affecting the real world, where all of a sudden John Saxon is not only becoming Donald Thompson, he's dressed like him. He's driving a
Well,
cop car. It's like
I mean,
he's
slowly through the movie, reality starts to
yeah, like
disappear because her hair turns gray like it does in the movie.
yeah,
and
exactly. So yeah, like this entity is controlling the real world as well, outside of the nightmares, or I mean, they're having earthquakes that only they feel, that only Heather feels, things like that throughout the movie. So there's this poltergeist kind of vibe going on, but now material is changing and people are changing, and so they're having this back and forth. Heather then chases John as he's walking to the squad car and says, "You know, have you talked to Robert England? You know, who played Freddy? You know?" And he's like, Freddy who?" And Freddy Krueger. He's like, "You know, Freddy's dead." And it keeps cutting back to when they say Freddy, it cuts to the sheet and the blade coming through. In many ways, I feel that this scene is a birthing scene of Freddy Krueger in this world. This is him cutting through the womb, basically, in this scene.
As we've all done before.
As we've all done. And that's what it really looks like. So it cuts back and forth with Heather and Don Thompson. She's trying to get him to like, and he's like saying, "Don't go crazy like your mother did. Protect that little boy, and get some rest." You know, and he gets in the car. I'm not sure what's the next shot here.
The next shot is the
claw, more of the claws of the birthing scene.
Yeah.
And I think that's when he says Fred Krueger is dead, and that's when we get this beautiful shot of Freddy actually popping his head out of the vagina here and looking right at us. You know, this is what there's. I mean, he does these shots several times. I mean, when we first see him come out of the closet, this is very reminiscent of that shot too. Miss me, and so this, and again, as we've talked about the score, you're getting this dun 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 dun, and this this big operatic, huge stuff. And what to me, what it is like Freddy is almost in standby here. He's waiting for Heather to submit to the game, to the nightmare, to the new movie he's making. She has to accept her fate and play Nancy one last time. And he's waiting for that moment. And then it comes shortly after this shot where he tells, John tells Heather, you know, "I love you, baby," or whatever. And she says, "I love you too, Daddy."
Yeah. And I like when he's pulling away, he has her hand on, or his hand on her cheek. I don't know why I like that, but then
it's at that daddy line that it cuts to Freddy completely being birthed and ripping that sheet off right here, and then it cuts to the low angle shot, him and all his victory. "I am arrived. It's my fucking time.
He is risen.
He is risen, and Freddy Krueger is back and ready to do battle with Nancy Thompson once again. She's just accepted her role." And it cuts back to her. He steps off the bed, steps on the plane that fell from the ceiling. And then I think it cuts to a Nosferatu homage shot next of the claw in the shadow.
I love that.
Moving along the wall. It's a great shot. It's totally Nosferatu. You know, Robert Englund has said that when he was developing his performance as Freddy in 1984, that he based it on Klaus Kinski's Nosferatu performance in the Werner Herzog movie, and Jimmy Cagney a bit, and his stance and his all that. So it's swagger, and also from walking on a surfboard is how he developed the walk, because he was a surfer. But yeah, you get this great, beautiful Nosferatu. You know, Robert using that silhouette because that was the first thing he noticed he could do with Freddy, with that glove and with that hat, even though he doesn't have the hat here. Freddy casts a beautiful cool fucking shadow or silhouette. And we see it in the alleyway in the original. We see it multiple times in the film, in the series, and this is one of the best. And we got that music swelling, building up. It's a kind of building, and then it like just hits a big crescendo with her watching Donald drive away.
Yeah.
Before this, like it shows her in the pajamas.
Yeah, there's a shot of her.
Yeah, right there. She sees. He says something to her, and she looks down and sees what she's wearing. Now she's changed. Now she's Nancy, and he says, "Get some rest," or something. And he, like you said, he touches her face. He drives off. And as
out of order.
Here, yes, we hear that classic Charles Bernstein Elm Street theme. It's vacant from the rest of the movie.
The transition's so good too.
But it's so beautiful because this is a one shot of her. The music hits. She turns around. She looks. She kind of gulps as she sees what has happened. And then the audience is revealed to see what happens as she moves forward and runs towards Elm Street 1428. And
yeah,
that's a fucking. It's a beautiful. It's just one of the. It's the best scene in the film, handled very well. It's the scene that would give the fans the goosebumps that they were hoping to get, and I guess maybe if the movie had more of that, it would have been more popular. But at the same time, we've gone through the whole movie, and it pays off with that scene, and then we go into our third act, and I just think it's a. Wes tells her, "Are you willing to play Nancy one last time?" And that's really what this entity, this demon, is waiting for. This is a birth scene. This is her rebirth scene as Nancy, and now it's face-off time. It's go get my son and save humanity from this demon, I guess.
Yeah, and a lot of that, and we went over most of the direction and cinematography here, but the cinematography in that scene was exactly why I thought you were going to choose it. I mean, it's Seth too. Seth, you comment on that scene a little bit. Why would you think that he would choose that? Sorry, it's just happened outside.
It's just a great scene in general. Everything that Nate just explained about it. It's visually cool. It's a interesting plot point, and I like how some of that dialogue is literally from the first movie. It's from their conversation when right after Johnny Depp
dies.
Yeah. So it's like directly taken from that, and I don't know, and leading up to the Elm Street theme playing and seeing the house, it was just a really great moment in the movie.
Yeah, a lot of good moments like that. Another one, Wes Craven, his conversation with her ending with the script on the computer where he's just written everything they just said. Was just
green text on black screen.
Really fucking cool stuff. That this movie was ahead of its time, underappreciated. You still run in, you go in any Nightmare on Elm Street forum, there's still a lot of people who don't like this movie. I don't know how they can't, but because I guess a lot of people just want the same, and
repetition.
Russ wasn't interested in doing that, even though he gives us a lot of the same scenes recreated. A lot of classic scenes, but that makes sense because this demon is just imitating Freddy. So it makes sense that he would imitate sequences and moments from what it knows. It's the AI. It's just what it was taught and shown. It's just recreated it.
So I did ask our followers, what are your honest thoughts on New Nightmare? And some of them, they were pretty favorable. Definitely a movie that grew on me the older I got, just like me, because, excellent, underrated, love New Nightmare, best Freddy design by a country mile, most creative and truly scary entry in the series aside from the original. So yeah, most of these comments are actually pretty glowing. But yeah, I know what you're talking about because there are people who do not like this movie. When we did, and I'm going to pull that up in just a second. When we did our ratings, there was a good chunk of people who I want to say it was a small percentage, but maybe like 11% gave it a 1-star rating. And I'm like, who the fuck is this doing? Like this is not a 1-star movie. I mean, like we've gotten plenty of 1-star movies that we've put on there, but it came out to be 80%, which I thought is pretty fair.
That's a good score.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good score for this.
I would agree with that. That's fair.
Yeah, and I think this is number 3 on the community score rating of the Nightmare on Elm Street 1 was like 91%. I think Dream Warrior was 90.
I would say it's a more interesting movie than any of the Friday movies.
Yeah. I mean, that's for sure.
But,
that's fair. That is fair.
That is fair.
But it's never going to get the kind of love that Friday the 13th gets.
No, Friday the 13th fans. I mean, and we all love Friday the 13th. So
we love it.
Yeah, it's just, but the fans are rabid and ravenous, just like the Halloween fans. Although I think the Halloween fans are more divided than Friday the 13th fans are. Because of so many timelines. As a matter of fact, Seth just posted an article on the horrorsyndicate.com ranking, was it 5 or 6 timelines for Halloween?
6. There was a couple that I propose as timelines,
right?
So you'd have to read it.
He invented some. I saw that.
It's good.
Well,
they work though.
Yeah,
taking them at the face value of when they were. Yeah, whatever. Just read the article.
Yeah, it's there. It's on the website, thehorrorsyndicate.com. It's been there since 2016. So okay, my computer started acting like an asshole, like a Seth.
An asshole.
I have that somewhere.
I will say this. New Nightmare is definitely not Mario Brothers 1993.
An asshole.
A masterpiece that was Mario Brothers.
All right, you guys ready for some questions?
I have seen so much like high praise for that movie all week, and I'm like,
that's because there's a new one, so there's
but it's
shit on the new one without seeing it, and then
but it's like, really?
That movie was.
I posted in the group. I saw a guy like shitting all over Hereditary Midsummer, but praising that, and I'm like, I'm in a bizarro world.
It is bizarro world.
It's definitely bizarro.
I never finished that movie, the Mario Brothers. It was.
I mean, it's not the worst movie in the world, but I mean, it's definitely terrible.
Dennis Hopper thinks so.
Yeah, you're right.
Piece of shit, man.
You get John Leguizamo defending the hell out of it. It's like,
I wish John would just stop with that nonsense. Like, he played an Italian.
Yeah.
What's wrong with Chris Pratt voicing an Italian and he played?
Yeah, I don't want to get into that.
I'm not getting into that.
I want to do when I ask some questions if you guys are cool.
Not a bad question, Bert.
First of all, sorry, Helena's outside in the back. Yeah, you can come in. I keep her outside. She's not allowed to come.
Quick.
Of course you're allowed to come in. What are you thinking? Did you throw your trash away?
I'm still going back out there. I just need to.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Now everybody can hear you say that. Did you guys hear what she just said?
Hi, Elena.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
All right. My first question is this. Would you have liked to see the scene with Michael Berryman? And do you know the scene I'm referring to, where him and Wes Craven are driving around in a truck, and I think Wes may have cut his eyelids off to stay awake while he's riding, and Michael Berryman's the one driving around in the van. Would you like to see that scene come to life?
I don't think it would have fit in this movie.
No, it wouldn't have. But when I saw there's a shot, like a concept of it, I was like, man, that looks awesome.
If we could have
Wes had
fit
something
that.
like-
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say there was something similar to that in the Wes Craven, Bruce Wagner, Elm Street 3 script, where a character cut off their eyelids or something like that.
Yeah, they mention it in Dream Warriors anyway.
Yeah, one of the patients
say,
cut his
it
eyelids
feels
off to
like
stay
it would've-
awake.
It feels like
Yeah.
it would have did well in Hills Have Eyes with Michael Berryman already. Oh,
Yeah, also I forgot to mention this earlier, but there's a scene in this movie where Nancy's doing or Heather's doing the interview with the weird host or whatever. But anyway, and then Freddie comes out and says, "You're all my children now," and it's like I remember Wes Craven saying that line did not make sense in part 2, but he put it in his movie. I thought that was kind of funny.
I'm gonna put on the light.
Okay.
I guess that actually came from an interview that Heather Langenkamp and Wes Craven did live after the original movie came out, and there was kids in the audience saying, "We want Freddy, we want Freddy," and that completely horrified him. Just like there was 6-year-old kids "We want Freddy," no, this is not what we want.
I created this evil pedophile child murderer, and kids are wearing Freddy pajamas and shit. And part of him was kind of that's part of what the series did was make Freddy your buddy, and Wes was it was interesting because Wes was looking at that as a negative, but he was also looking at this movie as a positive of defending horror, in that we need to have this catharsis through horror, because this evil is defeated by the horror movie or watching the horror movie, and he's always said that people think that horror movies create violence. I was having a conversation last night about that. Violent movies create these people who are violent. It's no, Wes was they are facing, people who watch horror movies are dealing with their fears and their anxieties through watching these movies in a cathartic way. It's the people who don't release that stuff that do things that these people aren't doing, and their violence has always been a part of. Somebody was attacking movies, and I said, it's not modern movies because people used to go to the Colosseum in Rome to watch gladiator fights, and this has always been here. This has always been a fascinating thing for mankind. People like Jack the Ripper fascinated people, and Billy the Kid fascinated people, and
Ted Bundy,
pulp magazines and men's magazines and EC Comics, and Nicky Spillane was the Stephen King of the 40s and 50s, and all his books were very hardcore and violent and sexist and deviant, and people bought them and
call them back.
So there's always been a fascination with the dark side of man's nature. So I think that's Wes was a big defender and one of the most intelligent people to talk to about this subject. He often defended horror movies because he saw people treated. He said after people found out he made Last House on the Left, he'd be at dinner parties and people wouldn't want to talk to him. They didn't want him there at the party because they figured he's that, but he's not. He's I always say there's nothing that I can't think of that someone hasn't actually fucking done to another person.
That's true.
And I'm not going to do that to a person. I can imagine it, but I don't have it in me because I have morality. But it's already been done.
Right.
Can you imagine that though? Sitting at a dinner party, a young Wes Craven. Okay, you made the Last House on the Left. Okay.
And he was such a square too, he was like a professor, like a teacher. He was, and he looked like
he was an observer. He was friends with Carpenter and Romero. He had just observed everybody around him. He was kind of a nerd.
And he knew his history, he knew his mythology. I mean, he's using Hansel and Gretel in this movie as a theme. He constantly revisits it, but Hansel and Gretel has links to medieval times, and also before that in Greek mythology. There's a story in Greek mythology where things are left as a trail to escape the Minotaur and its labyrinth, things like that. So and Wes knows all about that shit, and I'd love to be in the room when people would challenge Wes Craven on what he did for a living, because he knew his shit, and he would. I've had those conversations where people ask me, because I've made horror films and I've made horror shit, and people are like, "Why do you do this? Why is your interest there?" And it's like, I don't make it because I'm evil or I want to do these things. It is catharsis. It is. It's like the writer said, if you piss me off, I'll get back at you in my next play or my next book or my next comic or we unleash our wrath in our art.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like in one of the comics, I cut a guy's arm off. I'm not going to do that in real life. I put it in my comic.
It's just like naming the doctor after the MPA guy who
made
his life living hell.
There's that revenge,
Yeah.
Okay, I got more questions. That was good though. What do you think of the new Nightmare Glove?
Excellent.
It was cool to see a nod to Matthew Peake's drawing, because it was always, those posters are amazing, and you look at that glove and I wish it was a little more skeletal like the poster was, but because of the nature of it, it looks beefy.
Yeah,
it's a very beefy hand because Robert had to wear it, and I think it was probably just a glove he slipped on, and they put all this stuff on it. But it was a really cool, nasty looking thing, with those sharp curved silver claws.
It was organic looking.
Yeah.
I wonder if this was made now, if they would make it more, because they could with CG make it a CG glove, and then add whatever they wanted to it. Just have Robert wear a glove, and do whatever. Because if it was just bones and the claws, that would be kind of cool. But I like seeing the the muscles and the tendons and all that stuff. I think that's really cool. Yeah. The only thing that bothers me is that thumb blade.
Bother Robert. Very clumsy having that on there.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to make much sense to me. Seth, what about you? You didn't answer. Come
on. Yeah, it's okay. It fits for the movie.
And Seth, he'll be here all week. The next question is his appearance. Overall appearance of Freddy. What do you think of the overall appearance? I'm not a big fan of this look, but
fuck that fedora.
Yeah, that fedora.
Yeah, that fedora is like, did you just pick that up at Burlington Coat Factory that day or something?
It's green, like really green.
It's green. It's not even weathered. Like none of his clothing is weathered, which is customary with Freddy. So yeah, I don't love it. There's I appreciate it because it isn't Freddy. And I like that he's like, well, we can do whatever we want, really. And Robert has said, that Freddy is really just the perception of his victims. Like the way kids see him is not really what Freddy Krueger.
That's why he can be replaced, by the way.
It can be different. It can be different for somebody else.
Yeah. Whoever your boogeyman is what.
I don't know why he wore pleather pants though. I just
and I don't like the fact that he's wearing a coat either. It's like, what the hell, man? You're in Southern California.
I kind of like the coat in the Tracy kill scene where he's walking around the ceiling and all that. It was cool.
Yeah.
And it was almost a homage because, Robert did that appearance at a parade back in like 85 or something, where he wore a trench coat and a fedora. It was like a London fog trench coat, beige, but and there's those photos of him from Dream Warriors, those promo photos where he's wearing that gray trench coat.
I don't think I've seen those.
You haven't seen those?
I don't think so.
Yeah, those are pretty infamous out there. Like it's just from part 3, and he's got like a charcoal gray trench coat on. He's posing in his Dream Warriors makeup.
Either I'm blanking on them or I don't remember.
When you look it up, you'll see. And go, oh yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah.
You've seen them. I know you've seen them.
I probably have. I'm just blanking. Okay, this is the last question I have. Do you think the events was all this was in Heather's head?
I don't think so.
I mean, you can create the debate that it was, but yeah, like out of excuse me, out of everything you've been giving throughout the movie, I don't think it was at all in her head. Nurses saw shit, like, you know.
I think one of the things we haven't talked about, which
oh my god, this
probably
I've never seen that before.
I think one of the most terrifying elements of this film is a parent dealing with their child who may be mentally ill.
Yes.
You know, like Dylan's behavior. As a parent, you don't want that ever for your children, of course, and you want to fight it, but you don't know how to deal with it. But she's also dealing with her own mental, or what she thinks is mental illness, but it's being perpetrated by the stalker and this demon, and so is Dylan's. But at the same time, just as a parent, you know, how far can this go before you have to, you know, commit Dylan or commit yourself?
Yeah,
that's the horrifying part of the movie.
She mentions it.
First, I play with Jed.
Talking to John, she mentions there's that's kind of runs in the family. So like that's kind of why that question came up in my head was like, I wonder if this is some kind of PTSD thing with her from the stalker, the earthquakes, and just being a part of the series. You know, like just a thought I had, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion.
It could totally be supported and interpreted that way.
Yeah,
because that was stuff that happened to her in real life.
Yeah. And that's what's good about film. That's good filmmaking is when you have all those possibilities and none of them can be discredited as a possibility. As Tarantino just did I saw it's an old clip, but he was talking about how not giving the audience answers, letting the audience answer questions, and he goes, I don't want to answer them because if I answer them, then that idea you had is gone. But like if I don't tell you what's in the suitcase,
you won't speculate anymore.
Speculate and you go, oh well, it's this. He said that. Instead of if now there's 100 possibilities because 100 people guessed what is in there. He goes, and I like that there's all these different versions of this movie or this possibility, and that's something Wes Craven's doing in this movie. Is there are very different. I mean, we've talked about it on other films in this movie, and that's what really good filmmaking is. Some people get angry about that. They want answers. They want closure. They want.
Right.
They think it's shitty writing or lazy writing or
you want that immediate. Yeah, you want that immediate decision, right or wrong.
But it's like, what do you think? And you're not right and you're not wrong. And that's what this movie has.
Mm-hmm. That was out of that possibility was watching it today. Anyway, so that's my questions for the day. Let's do final thoughts and wrap this one up. Seth, how about you do final thoughts first because you're the best.
Yeah. My final thoughts are I think it's a good movie. It's not quite one of my favorites like it used to be, and I don't rewatch it as often as I do some of the other sequels.
Yeah.
But I like it. I think it's got a good story to it. I think Heather is pretty strong in it, especially in the moments where she is, especially in the hospital scene, right before the third act. when she's talking to the other doctor, and she's just really good when she's just kind of playing it as very protective of Dylan, and she's kind of like had enough. And
she's all screw your past. Yeah.
Shit, there was something. Yeah. Damn, there was something I was going to mention, and I forgot. I'll try to remember before the end.
It wasn't the God wouldn't take me scene, is it? This was a pretty powerful moment.
No, but that was a really good scene.
It really was.
Okay. While you think about that, we'll move on to Jared and his final thoughts.
It was a really fun movie. I watched it twice in the last week just to try to see if my opinion would change. It didn't. It doesn't mean it's not a bad thing, but the third act felt like everything that was wrong with all of the Nightmare sequels. It was hokey. It like he spent all this time doing a movie for two. Yeah, there she is.
I'm sorry.
The tongues, the mouth, like it looked like something straight out of Beetlejuice. Okay, like he 2/3 of the movie he was striving to get us something great, and like it was still a great movie. Don't get me wrong, but it's like the third act fell flat for me because it felt like literally any of the other endings of the other Nightmare movies, where it got hokey and it got goofy, and like it just didn't have to be that way because he was doing everything right for the first 60 minutes of the movie, and then I don't know.
No, it's okay to have that opinion, because there are parts of that last scene, the last part that are problematic for me too.
Yeah, I've always had the same thoughts, Jared. That is a killer set.
Yeah,
and we have this great build-up, and that could have been a very terrifying scene, and it is in its own right. But yeah, stabbing him in the eye with an eel, the tongue, the growing arm, which is an homage to the first movie, the alleyway scene,
Yes.
but it looks bad. Doesn't look anatomically right. It's like he's hair and it's coming out over here or something. The music, again, we've talked about how the music kind of takes bad left turns. It does in that scene too. I almost think that ending should have been stretched out a little more, because Heather is entering like a fantasy labyrinth world that is very cool looking on screen, and there could have been a lot more maybe cat and mouse or horror elements, but it as Jared said, it kind of goes left with those goofy moments and those gags that I think sometimes really hurt Wes Craven's filmography. His filmography has a lot of like, oh, how did he choose to do that? Like that's the thing. Like Wes Craven's movies are rarely perfect. Even the original Nightmare has those moments you're like, why did he go that way?
No, it does not.
Yeah, it does.
No.
It's my favorite horror movie, but like the Marge scene, the skeleton falling. I
love that scene though.
There's a lot of like parts from like, I wish he hadn't done that, and a lot of that probably comes from his mythology love, where shit like that happened in biblical times and mythology, all these oddball things, and he's playing with dreams and all this odd stuff. But I do think that Freddy could have been extremely terrifying in that finale, and that's negated or cut when those little goofy scenes happen, those goofy choices.
Which is it's funny because that's one of the things Wes Craven did not like about the sequels.
Yeah,
and he did it himself.
I got some gingerbread.
Yeah.
It's like hitting the nose on the like with the Hansel and Gretel thing.
Yeah. For sure.
Like we all know where it's going at that point. 'Cause he's leaving the sleeping pills and all that.
Yeah.
But overall, I do think it's one of the 15 best horror films of the 90s.
Yeah. For sure.
I can agree with that too.
Right up there with Freddy's Dead.
I do think it's one of the very best. Elm Street. I like that it's a standalone movie. I don't want to see any sequels or off shots of it. I think it's a nice, and they luck out with the whole earthquake hitting right there when they were filming it, so all that stuff's real damage.
Yes,
someone said, Wes, did you make a deal with the devil when the earthquake happened? Because it's like you can't buy that kind of production value on it. Because it seemed like they were cutting corners on the movie, and a lot of times, even the composer was a guy who did a lot of New Line music, which may be why it's not the greatest. Because this guy he did like some classic movies like The Gate and things like that. But
The Gate,
his filmography is not the most
Storied.
wonderful. Yeah. And I wonder, like, why could they not get Charles Bernstein back? I wish Jacques Haken had shot the film, but maybe he was busy. Who we just lost, Jacques Haken.
I was gonna say he just passed away like last week, did he?
Yeah.
We lost him. And who was the other person?
Bill Butler, who shot Jaws, died 2 days before. So two amazing cinematographers who shot my two favorite horror films.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fucking terrible. Jesus.
So real fast, I want to let everybody know that the trailer for Dylan's New Nightmare is out and available on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you want to find it. There's really not much to it, and at least this hat's weathered.
That it is.
Yeah.
Looks like it's got a couple of bullet holes in it.
Yeah. No.
Don Thompson took some shots.
Yeah, I'm not really excited about this one, but whatever. Fan film. There is a good fan film, Elm Street wise, that you can check out on YouTube. It's called The Confession of Fred Krueger, directed by Nathan Thomas Milliner here. How's that ego? Is it padded a little bit? No. And I want to remind everybody next week not remind everybody, and telling everybody, we are talking about a movie called Green Room, which was fucking awesome. I watched it Saturday, I think.
Did you finally watch it? Jesus.
I finally watched it.
You finally listened to us, Jared.
I finally listened to you sons of bitches. and I really enjoyed it. Now we got to get Seth to watch it for next week. It's on HBO Max. And first of all, I got to say, I love Anton Yelchin and just about everything. What a talent lost, He's such a great actor.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's our next week's show. I'm looking forward to talking about that.
He never gets credit for how good he played Kyle Reese.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't really get that much credit for anything.
Great, Kyle Reese.
He was great as Kyle Reese. I loved him in Odd Thomas.
Thomas was good.
This is the movie that we're gonna have to talk about because that movie's awesome. Have you seen Odd Thomas, Nate?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that
Dean
movie.
Koontz thing, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
and I think Seth may or may not like it. I can't remember. And then I skipped one. But the week after that, we are doing Evil Dead Rise. So we all have to see it before the 26th. Is that possible for you guys?
I'm supposed to see it this weekend.
Yeah. Well, not this weekend.
Is it not coming out this weekend?
It's next weekend.
Yeah.
Renfield comes out this weekend.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. So, and then in 2 weeks after that, because I forgot to put the May 3rd episode, we're going to do one that Nate's been itching to talk about, The Devil's Candy, which is on Tubi, if you want to check that out. So, the other movie is The Neon Demon on May 3rd. Also, that Devil's Candy is going to fall on the 9th, which is a Tuesday. And it's the day before Nathan Thomas Milliner's. How old are you going to be? I can't remember.
47.
47. By the way, did you celebrate Rex Manning Day?
Monomore.
I mean, it looks like he did.
Yeah. I wanted to ask that earlier, but I was like, oh.
I just remember it was in my feed the other day, and like T-Rex Manning, T-Rex,
yeah.
as in Rex. Yeah, I got a red one. I was able to find this on eBay. The green one's probably got all bought up. This is the same thing. Came out in like I think the early '90s. So it was a real doll that Wes used for the film, but there were a green one and this red one. And so
Was there a blue one?
maybe.
Yeah, because I think my brother had something similar to that, and it was blue. Also, on Friday, Seth and I are wrapping up our Friday the 13th conversations with the remake. You want to talk about that shite? Seth, what would you say about the 2009 remake?
It's fucking awesome.
Damn it, no. Jared, what would you say about the
Stupendous.
2009 remake? There we go. Okay.
That it has stupidest tits.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, that's it for us for this episode. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a part of the Horror Syndicate. Here's to 7 more years, and then we're going to quit. No, I don't know. I have no idea how long this is going to go. In 7 years, I will turn 50. Should I still... Is that okay for us to be talking about horror films when we're in our 50s? Yes. Right?
I don't know if Metallica can be making metal music in their 60s. We could be talking.
Well, Sean
horror.
Clark does. He does his horror stuff still, and he's like 51. So anyway, check out Green Room on HBO Max before it turns into Max next month, and then come back. Yeah, it's merging. The merger's going through, and then come back and talk with us about Green Room. It's a good one. Fucking completely intense. Seth, you're gonna be shitting bricks, my friend.
It's a good siege movie. I know you like that. The Assault on Precinct 13.
Yeah, it's got nothing on an Assault Precinct. Yeah, it's got nothing on that one.
But I like that it says one way in, no way out. What a fucking perfect way to sum that shit up. Great movie. So check that out, and we will see you
Seth will
next.
fucking love that movie.
I think you will love it. It's on HBO Max. So,
all right, I'll check it out.
You have to because it's part of the episode. It's the episode. So, if you don't, I'm going to send you Assault on Precinct 13 back in the mail, so you can have 2 copies.
Oh my God.
And I'll only watch the remake.
Jesus Christ!
No.
Is it bad?
Throw the remake away.
I don't know.
It's not awful, but it's nowhere near as good as the original.
Not at all.
All right. Watch horror movies this weekend. Check out Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which I believe is also streaming on. I think it's on HBO Max. Or fucking buy it physically. Buy.
We have such sights to show you.
Hell yeah.